Good morning. Are you well? Fabulous. It's so difficult to speak after Jason Clay because that man has more facts in his brain than anybody I know, and he's always right. It's very impressive. So thank you all for coming out to the first Eat Asia Pacific Food Forum. It's very impressive to see so many of you here. I represent business, which in most food meetings still today is always an interesting start of introducing yourself. But I have news for you. Business has gotten the memo. We know the food system is broken. We have sat in many meetings with Jason and others to explain to us what are the challenges in the food system. Why aren't we able to feed all people in the world? What are we going to do about obesity? And how do we take care of smallhold farmers, of which so many do not make enough money to have a decent life? So we need solutions at scale. And that's precisely where business comes in. Business can innovate, business can drive scale, but business must build the right incentives. So, this year, the Better Business, Better World report came out. If you've never seen it, I would suggest you download it. By 2030, in Asia alone, there's about $1 trillion of incremental economic value to be obtained if business invests in sustainable food systems. So this is not only a story about doom and gloom. This is about finding a better basis to build business. And there's lots happening. Today and tomorrow you'll hear about the FRESH program, Food Reform Towards Sustainability and Health, a collaboration between the World Business Council for Sustainable Development and the EAT Forum. More than 30 companies working together on dietary switches, reducing food waste, and other solutions. The Global Agribusiness Alliance is having its big meeting here tomorrow. CEOs from around the world will fly in to look at the production system. The one thing that is critical for all of us to understand is these conversations are about transformational change, about systems that fundamentally need to be reshaped. And that's why when I was asked to moderate this panel, I was so glad with the two panelists that they had selected for us. Because if you want to talk about supply chains, if you want to talk about connecting supply to demand and back, then these are the two right gentlemen to invite. So let me first invite up on stage Mr. Sunny Verghese. He's the co-founder and CEO of a company called Olam, based out of Singapore. Sunny, good morning.
Good morning.
And secondly, let me also invite up onto the stage Mr. Netithorn Praditson. I'm his friend, so I get to call him Mao, which helps me a lot, Mao. Thank you. He's the VP of Sustainability, Group Sustainability and Communication of CP Group out of Thailand. Hi, good morning, Mao.
Morning.
So, Sunny, in my introduction, I said it's critical to change the system, and for that to work, we need to connect all the way from supply to demand.
Yes.
In your experience in Olam, is that possible? Do you have examples of it can be done?
It is extremely complex and difficult, but it can be done. And for us, as probably some of you know, we supply over 47 agricultural raw materials and food ingredients to about 23,000 customers across the world. We are in about 70 countries. We are producers and farmers, so we grow 21 crops in 26 different countries. But we are also originators, sourcers, so we source, we store, we process these into various ingredients and supply to our customers. So one way we are trying to bring all these three aspects of food together, which is really, can you produce enough food in terms of availability of the food, accessibility of that food, affordability of that food? Can we produce them in terms of adequacy, nutrition adequacy, the right quality of food? And finally, can we produce this food on a sustainable basis within the planetary boundaries? And in order to bring this together by linking the supply with the consumption, what we are doing is based on the systems that we have developed. We have 4.33 million farmers who are part of our supply network. Through the OLAM Farmer Information System, we geotag and we have identity and traceability to each of these farmers. Then through a program we call OLAM Inside, like Intel Inside concept, we are taking this to our customers and saying, if you buy cocoa or coffee or almonds or pistachios or walnuts from us, for every ton that we supply to you, we will be able to tell you what our carbon footprint is. We will be able to tell you what our water footprint is. We'll be able to tell you what our waste footprint is. We'll also be able to give you information, which farmers did we buy this from? Where are these farmers located? How did we transform their livelihoods in terms of increasing the productivity, providing them microfinance, giving them extension training and advice on good agricultural practices? And by embedding both this, we hope to get more stickiness with our customers. We hope to get some pricing power, a larger share of his wallet. But most importantly, we are able to link the market and the consumer with the supply chain. And through co-creating solutions, we are able to produce potentially the right kind of food, more food that is required, but most importantly, on a sustainable basis.
Great, thanks. Nettetorn.
Yes.
You are with the CP Group,
Yes.
which is based, for those of you who don't know, out of Thailand, is a completely integrated model, all the way from growing to retail.
Yes.
So connecting supply to demand, how does that work
Definitely.
in CP Food?
Yes. Thank you for that question. But before I start, I'd like to briefly thank Eat Forum for organizing this event and the honor to invite me to join this interview, and for the honor to have Peter as a moderator, because we are a new member of the WBCSD, so this is a very good experience for us to share best practices and to learn from OLAM, which is a long-term partner of the WBCSD as well. And before I begin answering your question, I'd like to also pay tribute to the late His Majesty King Bhumibol, whose royal teachings have laid foundations for the business of CP Group and all of the Thai people, especially in the agricultural sector, which is a very important foundation on the sufficiency economy philosophy that is important for all the Thai people, not just in Thailand, but globally as well. So to answer your question, I'd like to give you a brief overview of what CP Group is about at the global level. Is that we are a conglomerate with 8 streams of businesses, for those who may not be familiar with us. And we have operations in 20 countries worldwide with 300,000 employees. Our business covers 8 streams of businesses with agri-food, telecom, retail, all the way to pharmaceutical and automotive. So you can see that we cover a wide value chain and supply chain of products and businesses. But today I'd like to focus on the business of CP Foods, which is one of our 3 core businesses in Thailand in CP. CP Food has operations in 16 countries, exports to over 20 countries worldwide, and our products have touch point of over 3 billion consumers worldwide. And our business is fully integrated from feed, farm, food to retail. So just to give you a scope and scale of the CP Foods and CP Group, that how we can contribute to this process of connecting the dots together in terms of providing sustainable consumption and production. And we have already started. Similar to, but maybe not as advanced as OLAM has spearheaded or pioneered in the field, but CP Foods has already integrated sustainable business practices under 3 pillars. First is food security, second is sufficient society, and third is a balance of nature. To give you a concrete example, in terms of feed, we are trying to use the plant-based fish meal, plant-based animal feed to replace the fish meal, which is only a small scale of feed ingredients at the moment. And even for that small scale of the fish meal that we are using, that fish meal ingredient has received the IFO standard, which is a global standard in terms of sustainability. And in terms of farm, we are using the zero discharge farms, especially in the pig and the swine business. And thirdly, in terms of the food, our chicken products have received a certification from a German organization called DNV, which is a globally recognized organization that certifies sustainability of products worldwide. And lastly, we have programs to restore nature of the natural resources that are the source of the core of the agricultural productions. So I'd like to demonstrate that internally, we have tried to integrate all these business, sustainable business practices into our business, linking to what SDGs are all about, especially Goal 12 and Goal 17, which is responsible consumption and production and partnership. And that speaks closely to what Fresh program is trying to offer as well. I'll come back more with some of the concrete examples.
Great. Thanks, Mao. Sunny, if you want to connect supply to demand or if you want to transform the system, there aren't too many companies with as broad a spectrum as CP Group. So how is business going to collaborate?
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head, Peter. I think in order for us to really make a system change in the food, land, and water system, meta system, we need 4 levels of changes. One is really we need individual change. If water is precious, energy is precious, why is the US on a per capita basis using 300 gigajoules of energy per annum per capita versus Japan leading a similar quality of life using 150 gigajoules? So I think the first way we can change the system is to change individually as people and persons. The second way we can change is really to change our companies, and therefore mapping our carbon footprint, water footprint, waste footprint, and making public commitments and transparently disclosing your footprint and having targets to reduce the intensity of this footprint is the second level of change we need to have. And the third is what Peter is referring to, that if one person changes and one company changes, we're not going to be able to change the system. So we need the whole sector to change. And that is the reason why there is now the Global Agribusiness Alliance that Peter alluded to in his opening remarks. And there is the Climate Smart Agricultural Initiative of the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. There is a FRESH initiative that Peter had referred to earlier, and which you'll be hearing about a lot more. So these are all initiatives within the agricultural sector, because no individual company can bring about producing sustainable, good quality, right quality food of enough quantity to feed a growing population. So I think unless we can combine and leverage the configuration of assets, capabilities, learning, knowledge that everybody in the sector can bring together on the table to solve this problem, I don't think we can make that kind of a dent. And the last thing that needs to be put in place is policy. If we have individual level change, we have company level change, we have a sectoral change, it goes a long way, but unless a policy framework is in place in terms of pricing carbon, for example, as Singapore government last year introduced a carbon tax, is a good example of that. If you want to change behavior, anything that is free, we are going to use it indiscriminately. When all of these 4 things come together, from the public sector, private sector, and plural society, civil society, everybody coming together, that is the only way we can really affect system change.
Thank you. Mao, we mentioned FRESH a few times already.
Yes.
In the FRESH program, we have said you should really think from fork back to farm. So most people in the room will know almost any time you talk sustainability in the agriculture system, people will say we need to change the whole chain from farm to fork. In FRESH, we've turned that around.
Yes, definitely.
How important is the consumer choice and consumer behavior in all of this?
Well, certainly, because so far, as you rightly said, we have focused mainly on the production side. Little do we know about the consumption side. More importantly, little do consumers know about the critical change or critical need to change our behaviors in order to make a real and significant impact on sustainability of food consumption and production. Do we have that, in terms of climate change, for example, we have that wake-up call of that polar bear standing on a small iceberg. But do we really, as consumers, have that wake-up call that the way we consume, the way we produce, the way we live our lifestyle these days can have a critical impact on the entire global sustainability program Do we have that ring a bell yet? Do we have, as we go on, as we have breakfast this morning, as we go on the reception, do we have that awareness yet? When we go on supermarkets, do we have a choice, enough choice? Do we have enough informed knowledge about what we pick and what we pay? But lastly, are you willing to pay more for what could save the world? Are you willing to pay 50 cents more for a product that could save the planet? At the same time, are the shareholders from the corporate side willing to accept that maybe for the next few years as the company is transforming towards a sustainable practice, are they willing to accept that maybe that the performance maybe not as great as the past years as we are transforming towards a more sustainable practice? It's not just consumers, it's consumers wearing different hats. Consumers wearing as a shareholder, consumer wearing as the CFO of the company, consumers wearing as the CEO of the companies, or consumers as the general people walking on the streets. I think that's we need to come in as Mr. Sunny rightly said about the partnership of all the relevant actors. It's beyond the businesses involved in the food industry, telecom, retailers, all of those, not just the first tier, but second tiers, small scale holders. That's the consumers that I'm trying to push, that in terms of the defining the consumers.
Great. You made the point very clearly that we need transformational change, and it cannot
Definitely.
be one actor, all stakeholders. So our friends of the EAT Forum, Sunny, they are working in a thing called the EAT Lancet Commission.
Yes.
And will very soon come out with the first set of science-based targets to grow enough food for all the people on the planet within the boundaries of the planet, as Johan Rockström will put into that, and also provide healthy diets. We've seen some sneak previews of those potential targets, and they're going to be very challenging. How ready is business to step up to transformational change, do you think?
Well, not ready at all. I think business has yet not recognized the footprint. To just give you an example, FAO in 2015 came up with the study that in order to produce the 4 major food crops, wheat, corn, soybean, and rice, the total externalities created in terms of the benefits that we have derived from nature to produce those 4 food crops is about $1.15 trillion, equivalent to 134% of the revenue, which means that the food that we consume is hugely subsidized by all of us because there are public costs, and because Mother Nature's back office is not set up, it is not issuing us those invoices. So I'm eagerly looking forward to the EAT Lancet Commission's science-based targets on what foods on a healthy basis should we produce within the constraints of the planetary boundary conditions in terms of the resource intensity to produce those healthy foods. That, I think, will considerably inform the judgment of companies in terms of what choices to make, in terms of what foods to produce and at what cost to produce and where to produce it, I think would be critical. But it's also important that that creates transparency. So today we do not know whether company X or company Y is better or worse based on producing things or doing things on a sustainable basis. Now, if you have a transparent measurement system that is science-based targets, then that becomes easier for companies to then begin to disclose on a level playing field basis what they have done to produce the goods and services that we all consume, and to then rate and rank companies and then average up the standards so that everybody will aspire to the best standard of producing this on a sustainable basis.
Mao, CP Group is Thai-based, so you're from this part of the world.
Yes.
How easy or difficult will it be in Asia Pacific to bring all stakeholders together and do this collaboratively?
I would call it's a challenge. It's difficult, it's quite subjective to put the difficulty scale on that challenge. But CP has already started. We have, first of all, integrated that global goals, such as the SDGs, internally. We set the 2020 targets corresponding with the SDGs, for example, the point is that to bring at least all of the internal actors together. That's a start. That's a start for any business. Before we go outside our fence, it's first that the entire group of companies speak with one voice. For example, by 2020, all of our 100% of our critical suppliers will be audited for their sustainable practice. By 2020, 100% of our key raw materials will be fully traced for their responsible sourcing. And by 2020, 50,000 smallholder farmers in Thailand's livelihood will be improved. That's a start. And then, once we have those targets, we can extend beyond our fence to engage with all the stakeholders, the relevant stakeholders in Thailand. Suppliers, for example, is the small-scale holders, for example, in Thailand, and all of those suppliers in the supply chain of our key raw materials. I think once we have everything starts at home.
Yeah.
If our home is put right in order, we're working on it. I'm not overclaiming that CP Group is working very hard towards that goal, to set our rights in order, set the clear targets, and then the engagement will follow, definitely, as you rightly said. But at the same time, in response to what you said earlier about the Lancet Commission and all those global targets, what I'd like to stress is first of all, is the coherence of all these plans. Lancet Commission, I really look forward to the study and the result, but it should speak in a coherent manner with what we have heard already. It should not add an additional item. And second is pragmatism. What we come up with should be practical for all businesses and all stakeholders alike. That's what I'm saying.
So we have about 2 minutes left in this panel. We could talk all day, but there's more people who want to be on the stage. So this is a relatively diverse audience. Some people will come from business, others from government, science, NGOs, and just interested citizens. One of the things that struck me most when working in the food system is the very low levels of trust, in particularly low levels of trust in business people. So Sunny, I give you 1 minute to say, why should people trust you?
So firstly, we have to be transparent. Secondly, we have to be an integral part of the solution of changing the food, land, and water systems into a more sustainable, and every company has to play its part. I think we will then regain the trust in the food sector.
Wow, that's 15 seconds, well done. All right, Mao. So what can we do to really improve the trust that the food system has in the business side of it?
2 words from my side: commitment. Once we have set the targets, once we have announced what we are trying to achieve, we try very hard. I think all alike, all stakeholders alike, try very hard to meet that commitment, either the corporate commitment or the political commitment that we have made. Second is partnership. Once we sit down together, take up our jackets and work together, taking off our hats, trying to achieve a common goal together, I think that will create trust and confidence among all stakeholders around the table. Hopefully maybe 17 seconds. Sorry.
Not too bad. Okay, thank you very much. Business is ready, science-based targets on our way, and transparency will build trust. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.